My name is Natalie Reed, and my husband, Ryan, slammed my head against our bedroom wall hard enough to fracture my skull. His mother, Linda, called 3 days later to check if I was behaving better now. I recorded that call, and what she accidentally confessed changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my injuries, and the 3 women who'd died before me. The impact made a sound I'll never forget, a hollow crack, followed by ringing silence. Ryan's hand was in my hair, twisting, pulling me backward. We'd been arguing about money, about his mother's constant interference, about why he'd withdrawn $50,000 from our savings without telling me. His face was red with rage, veins bulging in his neck, as he screamed that I was ungrateful, suspicious, paranoid. Then he slammed my head into the wall. Once, twice, the third time, everything went white. I woke up on the bedroom floor, alone, with dried blood on my temple. Ryan was gone. No note, no explanation. My phone showed 6 missed calls from his mother, and 1 text from Ryan. Went to Mom S. Clean yourself up, and maybe we'll talk when I get back. I drove myself to the hospital, told them I'd fallen downstairs. The doctor, an older woman with kind eyes, didn't believe me but couldn't force me to report it. She ordered a CT scan that showed a hairline skull fracture and a concussion. She gave me paperwork about domestic violence resources that I shoved into my purse without reading. Ryan came home 2 days later, acting like nothing had happened. His mother called that evening, her voice syrupy sweet. "Natalie dear, Ryan told me you had an accident. How are you feeling?" "I have a fractured skull, Linda." "It wasn't an accident." Silence, then, "Well, marriage is complicated. Sometimes we push our husbands too far. Ryan said you were being difficult about money, questioning his decisions. You know how he gets when he feels disrespected." My blood went cold. She knew he'd hurt me, and she was justifying it. "He could have killed me," I said quietly. "Don't be dramatic. Ryan would never seriously hurt you. He just needs you to be more cooperative, more understanding of his needs. Maybe if you worked on being a better wife, these incidents wouldn't happen." These incidents, plural, as if this wasn't the first time, as if it was normal, expected, part of marriage. "I should go," Linda continued. "But think about what I said. Ryan's a good man, a good provider. Don't ruin your marriage over one little fight. And Natalie, it's probably best if we keep this between the family. No need to involve outsiders who wouldn't understand." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, my head throbbing, trying to process what had just happened. Ryan's mother had essentially told me to accept being abused and keep quiet about it. That's when something clicked. I opened my phone as recording APID, been using it to record therapy sessions with my counselor, and realized it had been running during Linda's entire call. Every word she'd said, every justification, every instruction to stay silent, was captured. I saved the file to cloud storage and labeled it Linda, Evidence 1. Then I started digging into something that had bothered me for months, but I'd dismissed as paranoia. Ryan's previous relationships. He'd told me he'd been married once before, that his ex-wife had died in a car accident. Tragic, he'd said, but it was years ago, and he'd moved on. But there were photos in his mother's house of Ryan with other women, photos Linda would quickly hide when I asked about them, mentions of names Melissa Sarath that Ryan would deflect whenever they came up. I spent the next week researching while nursing my fractured skull, found obituaries, news articles, and police reports. Ryan hadn't been married once. He'd been married 3 times, and all 3 women had died. Melissa Reed died 7 years ago from a fall down basement stairs, ruled accidental. Sarah Collins died 5 years ago from a head injury after allegedly falling in the bathtub, ruled accidental. Jennifer Hart died 3 years ago from a car accident brake failure on a mountain road, ruled accidental. 3 dead wives, 3 accidents, 3 life insurance policies that Ryan had collected on, each worth over $500,000, and I had a life insurance policy too. I was wife number 4, and I'd just survived what was probably meant to be a fatal head injury. I called Linda back a week later, recording the conversation from the start. "Linda, I need to talk to you about Ryan, about his previous marriages. What about them?" Her voice was cautious. 3 women died, Linda, all accidents, all head injuries or falls. And now Ryan's fractured my skull. Don't you find that suspicious? The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then, accidents happen, Natalie. Those women were clumsy, careless. Melissa fell downstairs because she wore those ridiculous high heels. Sarah slipped in the tub because she didn't use a bath mat. Jennifer's car had old brakes. None of it was Ryan's fault. You were there when Melissa fell. Yes. I was visiting that day. I heard the commotion. What kind of commotion? They were arguing. Ryan gets frustrated sometimes when women don't listen. Melissa was being hysterical about something I can't even remember what, and then I heard a thump. She'd fallen down the stairs, or been pushed. She fell, Linda said firmly. The police investigated. They ruled it accidental. What about Sarah? Were you there when she died, too? Another long pause. I stopped by that morning to drop off some things. Sarah and Ryan were fighting about her wanting to visit her family. Ryan thought she was being selfish, abandoning him. I left before anything happened, but Ryan called me later saying there'd been an accident. My hands were shaking as I recorded this, and Jennifer was difficult from the start, always questioning Ryan's finances, wanting to control everything. She threatened divorce, said she was going to take half of everything. A week later, her brakes failed. Tragic, really. Linda, do you hear yourself? You're describing 3 women who died shortly after conflicts with Ryan, 3 women he collected insurance money from, and now I have a fractured skull from him, slamming my head into a wall. You're overreacting, Linda said, but her voice was shaky. Ryan loves you. He just has a temper sometimes. All men do. You need to be more careful, more submissive. If you'd just stop questioning him, stop making him angry, everything would be fine. Were you helping him? Linda, did you help stage these accidents? I don't know what you're talking about, but the panic in her voice told me everything. I think you do. I think you've been helping Ryan kill his wives for insurance money. I think you probably get a cut of it. How much, Linda? How much do you get paid to help your son commit murder? The line went dead. Linda had hung up, but I had the recording. 40 minutes of Linda describing each death, admitting she'd been present for at least 2 of them, defending Ryan's violence, and instructing me to be more submissive. It wasn't a full confession, but it was close. I hired a private investigator named Marcus who specialized in suspicious deaths, gave him everything I'd found, the obituaries, the insurance payouts, the recordings of Linda. He reviewed it all with growing horror. Your husband is a serial killer, Marcus said bluntly. He's been murdering wives for insurance money, and his mother is either helping or covering for him. The pattern is clear. Marry, take out insurance, create a situation that looks like an accident, collect the payout, rinse and repeat every 2 years. Can we prove it? The recordings help, but they're not enough on their own. We need more evidence. Physical evidence, financial records showing the money transfers may get Linda to confess more directly. I can do that, I said. I can get her to confess everything. Over the next week, I called Linda repeatedly. Each time, I recorded everything. Each time, I pushed harder, asked more specific questions, pretended to be confused and seeking reassurance rather than accusatory. Linda, thinking she was managing me, started revealing more details. She admitted she'd witnessed Melissa's fall, described how Ryan had been at the top of the stairs when it happened. She mentioned being at Sarah's house the morning of her death, described the bathroom where she'd drowned, and let slip that Ryan had suggested Sarah take a bath to relax before her family visit. She detailed Jennifer's car problems, mentioned that Ryan had been helping with the brake maintenance the week before the fatal accident. She even mentioned the insurance policies, defending them as smart financial planning. But the darkest revelation came during our 6th call, when Linda thought I was resigned to staying with Ryan and accepting his violence. You're being smarter than the others, Linda said, her voice almost warm. Jennifer fought back, threatened to expose everything. That's why her accident had to happen sooner than planned. If you just cooperate, be a good wife, Ryan won't have to. Well, you'll live longer. How much longer, Linda? Another year or 2, probably. The insurance policies need to be active for at least 3 years to avoid scrutiny. Just keep quiet, don't make him angry, and when it's time, make sure you're somewhere that looks accidental. Stairs are good. Bathtubs, roads with cliffs. Ryan's very good at making things look natural. My stomach turned. And what do you get out of this? 30% of each policy. Fair compensation for the emotional support I provide. It's not easy helping your son through these tragedies, you know. She said it so casually, like she was discussing a business arrangement rather than serial murder for profit. With 7 recorded calls and Marcus's investigation, I had enough to contact law enforcement. I reached out to the state's major crimes unit through a detective Marcus New. Detective Sarah Chen reviewed everything: the recordings, the pattern of deaths, the insurance payouts totaling over $1.5 million, the medical records of my fractured skull. This is the most clear-cut case of serial murder for profit I've seen, Chen said. But we need to be careful. If we arrest Ryan now, his lawyer will argue the deaths were accidents, that the recordings are hearsay, that you're a bitter wife making accusations. We need him to incriminate himself directly. How? We need you to do something dangerous. We need you to stay with Ryan, act normal, and get him to admit to the murders on a recording. Can you do that? I thought about Melissa, Sarah, and Jennifer. 3 women who died because no one had stopped Ryan. I thought about who would come after me if he got away with this. I can do whatever it takes to make sure he never hurts anyone again. They wired me with recording equipment and surveillance devices. Cameras are hidden in our home, audio recording is constantly on, and everything is monitored by detectives in the van outside. I was instructed to bring up his previous wives, to push him into talking about the deaths, to get him angry enough to reveal the truth. It took 3 days of careful manipulation before Ryan broke. We were arguing about money. Again, it questioned a large cash withdrawal and Ryan's face went red with familiar rage. You're just like Jennifer, he spat. Always questioning me, never trusting me. Look how that turned out for her. What happened to Jennifer? Ryan. She had an accident. A tragic accident that could have been avoided if she'd just shut up and trusted me. Did you cut her brake lines? Ryan's eyes went cold. She drove a car with faulty brakes. Not my fault. She didn't maintain her vehicle properly, but you maintained it for her. You told me that once, that you handled all her car maintenance. So what? So you had access to her brakes. Access to sabotage them. Ryan grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. Be very careful what you're accusing me of, Natalie. I'm not accusing. I'm asking. Did you kill Jennifer? Did you kill Sarah and Melissa, too? His hand moved to my throat, not squeezing yet, but a clear threat. Those women made mistakes. Jennifer threatened to divorce me and take half of everything. Sarah was going to leave me for her family. Melissa was cheating. I'm certain of it. They made choices that had consequences. Consequences you created, consequences they earned, Ryan corrected, his fingers tightening slightly. Just like you're earning right now by questioning me. Do you want to end up like them, Natalie? Because I can arrange that. Stairs are easy, bathtubs are easy, car accidents are very easy. Your mother helped you, didn't she? Ryan smiled, and it was the most chilling thing I'd ever seen. Mom understands family loyalty. She understands that sometimes sacrifices are necessary for financial security. She was there when Melissa fell, helped clean up. She suggested the bathtub for Sarah. She even researched brake line mechanics for Jennifer. We're a team that murders women for insurance money, a team that solves problems, Ryan said. His hand was fully around my throat now, squeezing enough to restrict my breathing. And you're becoming a problem, Natalie. Maybe it's time for another tragic accident. That's when Detective Chen and 3 other officers burst through the door with weapons drawn. Ryan's hand released my throat as he was thrown to the ground and handcuffed. His mother was arrested simultaneously at her house by another team. Ryan screamed threats as they dragged him out. Linda cried and played victim, claiming she was just a mother supporting her son, that she'd never hurt anyone. But every word had been recorded. Ryan's confession to 3 murders. Linda's recordings admit to helping stage the deaths and collecting payment. Financial records showing the insurance payouts split 70-30 between Ryan and his mother. The evidence was overwhelming. The trial was a media sensation that lasted 5 months. The prosecution presented everything. The 7 recorded calls with Linda, the surveillance footage of Ryan confessing, medical records from all 3 previous wives showing head injuries, my fractured skull as evidence of Ryan's pattern, and financial records showing the insurance fraud. They exhumed Melissa's body and found fractures consistent with being pushed downstairs, not falling. Sarah's autopsy was reviewed, and experts testified that her drowning showed signs of being held underwater. Jennifer's car was found in a salvage yard, and forensic analysis proved the brake lines had been deliberately cut. Ryan and Linda's defense tried to argue entrapment, that I'd manipulated them into saying things, and that the recordings were taken out of context. But the prosecution played the full audio hours of Linda casually discussing murder for profit, Ryan explicitly describing how he'd killed 3 women. I testified about the abuse, the fractured skull, and the realization that I was intended to be victim number 4. The families of Melissa, Sarah, and Jennifer testified about their daughters, sisters, and mothers who died in what they'd been told were tragic accidents. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before convicting Ryan and Linda on all counts: 3 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and attempted murder for my assault. Ryan was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 75 years. Linda got life without parole plus 50 years for her role in the murders. But I wasn't satisfied with just prison, because Ryan and Linda had spent years living comfortably on blood money, had felt no remorse for the women they'd killed, had planned to kill me, and likely would have continued with other victims. I wanted them to suffer in ways that transcended legal consequences. In Ryan's first month in prison, I made sure every inmate knew exactly what he'd done. I contacted victims' rights organizations with connections inside the prison system. Word spread quickly. Ryan had murdered 3 women for insurance money and tried to kill a 4th. Prisoners have their own code, and men who kill women for profit are considered among the lowest. Ryan lasted 2 weeks before he was attacked by 3 inmates whose sisters had been killed by abusive partners. He survived, but with permanent damage, a broken spine, leaving him partially paralyzed, skull fractures that caused lasting cognitive impairment, and vision loss in one eye. Linda fared worse. In a women's prison, inmates who were mothers themselves despised her for helping her son kill multiple women. She was attacked repeatedly, eventually left permanently disfigured and suffering from severe PTSD. Both were moved to medical isolation units where they'd spend the rest of their lives in solitary confinement for their own protection, 23 hours a day in cells, no human contact, minds slowly deteriorating. I also filed wrongful death civil suits on behalf of Melissa, Sarah, and Jennifer's families against Ryan and Linda's estates. We won judgments totaling $15 million. Every asset they'd accumulated through murder was seized and distributed to the victims' families. Their houses were sold, bank accounts emptied. Linda's jewelry collection, purchased with insurance money from the murder woman, was auctioned off. Ryan's car, the one he'd used to stalk Jennifer and access her vehicle to cut the brake lines, was crushed. But my darkest revenge was psychological. I sent letters to both of them every month for 5 years, detailing everything they'd lost and everything I'd gained. I described rebuilding my life, starting a foundation for domestic violence survivors, and helping other women recognize warning signs of dangerous partners. I detailed my happiness, my healing, my new relationship with someone kind and gentle who'd never raised a hand to me. I sent them photos of Melissa, Sarah, and Jennifer's families at memorial services. I'd organized celebrations of the women Ryan and Linda had murdered, reminders of the lives they'd destroyed. I told them about the book I was writing about their crimes, how their names would be synonymous with evil, how their story would be taught as a cautionary tale about family corruption and greed. Linda tried to write back once, a pathetic letter claiming she'd been manipulated by Ryan, that she was just a mother protecting her son. I sent it back with a note: "You helped murder 3 women for profit and planned my murder too. You'll die in that cell, and no one will mourn you." Ryan never tried to contact me. According to prison reports, his cognitive impairment from the attack left him barely functional. He spent his days staring at walls, unable to process complex thoughts, his mind broken beyond repair. 7 years after their convictions, I received notification that Linda had died in prison. Heart attack, brought on by stress and isolation. No funeral was held. Her body was cremated and disposed of as unclaimed remains. Ryan didn't even know his mother was dead. His cognitive function had deteriorated to the point where he couldn't understand what he was being told. I felt nothing when I heard about Linda's death except satisfaction that justice had been fully served. Ryan remained in prison, medical isolation, paralyzed, cognitively impaired, and completely alone. He'd murdered 3 women and planned to murder me, all for insurance money he never got to enjoy. Instead, he got a broken body, a broken mind, and a solitary cell he'd never leave. The families of Ryan's victims became close friends of mine. We formed a support network, shared our grief and anger, and helped each other heal. Every year, on the anniversary of the trial verdict, we gathered to remember Melissa, Sarah, and Jennifer, not as victims, but as women whose deaths led to justice and the prevention of future murders. I never remarried. The trauma of nearly being murdered by my husband left scars that therapy helped, but couldn't fully erase. But I built a full, meaningful life. The foundation I started has helped over 300 women escape dangerous relationships. My book about Ryan's crimes became a bestseller, with proceeds going to domestic violence prevention. People sometimes ask if I regret recording those calls with Linda, if I feel guilty about the violence Ryan and Linda experienced in prison, and if I should have shown mercy. I never hesitate in my answer. No, Ryan slammed my head into a wall hard enough to fracture my skull. His mother called to tell me to accept the abuse and stay quiet. Together, they'd murdered 3 women and would have murdered me if I hadn't fought back. I recorded Linda's accidental confessions, used them to expose decades of murder for profit, made sure Ryan and Linda spent their final years broken, isolated, and despised. They wanted me to be victim number 4. Instead, I became the witness who brought them down. Ryan died in prison isolation 8 years after his conviction, his body and mind so damaged he could barely function. No memorial was held. He was cremated and disposed of as medical waste. The man who murdered 3 wives and planned to murder me died alone, paralyzed, brain damaged, and forgotten. That's not revenge. That's justice with teeth.